Hey guys, Matt Lighty here, and I get asked the question very often in other ARPGs I play, whether it's just on launch or casually, will I do all for one or a unique collection series equivalent in that game? Now, last Epoch just came out. I played the game for about 4 or 5 days. I'm level 100. I've done a lot of content in the game, and there are much less uniques in this game, and they're much easier to acquire than games like Path of Exile. But the infrastructure for collecting uniques in this game simply is shit. And the reason is really basic. It's just the stash tab. There's no setup for stash tabs to really comfortably do this. You have to just take time and do what I just did, which is to manually make folders for all your weapon types and do that sort of stuff. And that just annoys me. And then I have to then consult what would be over here a checklist on the letools.com website where I could mark off, the random drops, the whatever, like helmets, and I can go through armors. And this just annoys me that the system is set that like one of the biggest parts of this game that I dislike is the stashing. So that's kind of a bummer. But what would it be like to actually collect uniques? Now I've done it casually in this game for, like I said, 4 or 5 days of play, which me is 14 hours a day of playing, although it's 4 or 5 days. So how far have I gotten in 4 or 5 days of not trying to target or do anything, just playing the game? And if I see unique, I pick it up if I think I don't have it for the set items and the unique items. So I'm going to go through the checklist and we'll show you how far I've gotten and what percentage I'm at. Okay, so that took a little bit of time, and I had to go through this entire checklist to click on them. There was this option that says to import, but I literally couldn't. I tried doing this and it just wouldn't work, so maybe it'll work for you. But in total, I definitely have most of the uniques, and after looking at these things, a lot of the categories I have like 21 out of, or like very, almost completion. I've seen these things and I just forgot to pick them up because I had no way of really checking in-game before I even made this tab section to know what was where. Now it's a little bit easier, but since you can't really re-enter monoliths the same way you can a map in like a game like Path of Exile, it's a little bit tricky. So of the base game drops, I have 200 out of 256 recorded. I've probably seen 230 out of those. The last are a few rare items. Nothing is remotely equivocal to what would be considered T0 in Path of Exile, but there are things that are marked as rare or very rare, and I've even seen some of those in a couple days of play at a lower tier of content. Now that I'm doing higher tier content, it'd be even easier. Now, from the specific monster section, these are basically just systematic. You'd have to farm these out by farming the bosses or the pieces of content. It simply would not be that hard. It would just take an amount of time. Really, from scratch, I believe if I had a month, I could very easily complete every single unique acquisition in last Epoch without much trouble. Probably sooner if I really tried. Now, there's also one from crafting. You can make this item from crafting. This quest ones are a given. So there are some things marked as very rare. Some of the very rare have a lot of conditional modifiers. For example, if we check out the amulet section, which I think is down here, there is items like, for example, the Omnis, which is a rare drop off of the Shade of Oribus, with a minimum corruption of 200. The content I was doing was about 350 corruption, and has the drop rate increases with corruption. So, things, even those are like just a matter of time. Or just doing any of these bosses, like the rare drops, when they say rare, those are like 1 in 25s, 1 in 30s. Not crazy. I could do 30 a day. So, yeah, this wouldn't be like that much of a challenge. It'd just be more of a thing to do. And I just think after seeing the 1.0 launch, technically the game is not up to snuff currently to really be played in that sort of setting or do some sort of feature or a mini-series. I'd like to do it maybe in the future when they have their stability more under control and there's maybe more content fleshed out a little bit. For someone who sinks a gross amount of time into games, for me, there's simply not enough meat on the bone as of yet, but you could do it. I would very much like them to have some sort of specialty stash system, because also, after having, for example, this is going to trigger people, but after having something like this, if I were to just be like fiddling about trying to grab this item, and I misclick the sort button, I would want to fucking commit Sudoku, because there's no unsort button, and I can't now unfuck what I've just done, except by manually putting this all back. And I'm not about to do that. So although these sort of functions are great, I just don't think the infrastructure is currently set up to facilitate me doing a series on this game unfortunately. The second they get any sort of tab system that is remotely like Path of Exile's, you know, Diablo's the same thing. It's just their infrastructure is quite poor for unique collecting and for collecting in general. I don't think it would take much. I think it's a very easy change to make. The game is incredibly enjoyable and incredibly good. I'd recommend this game to anybody who's a fan of ARPGs, especially if the game decides to work and the servers get under control. So that's not in question, but for unique collecting, yeah, it's just kind of not acceptable as far as my standards would go. So that answers that question. Would I do something like a unique collection series in the future for this? 100%. They just have to have an appropriate infrastructure to facilitate the series, because currently this would be very frustrating and to me unacceptable. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. I've been Matt Lighty. If you want to collect uniques yourself, the LE Tools system does have this checklist, which I believe you can you know, do things like loading and saving and importing from, making different profiles, etc. So there is some functionality there, and they do mark it even nicely blue when you have a section complete. So whenever you do max out a section, it does show blue like I have every dagger in game. So it marks them blue. That's nice. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys have a good day. I've been Matt Lighty, and yeah, bye-bye.